What's the best game of tennis you've ever played in your life?
You know, I did play tennis briefly when I was in elementary school.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't like amazing. I mean, for a 7-year-old, I was all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a short-lived era of my life, maybe 2 years. That's it.
My parents were gonna ship me off to Switzerland to do a tennis camp.
Wow, really?
Do you think my life would have been any
told us.
different if I went?
No.
You probably would have met a guy that you guys like really connect with.
And doubles player. And
Yeah.
Then,
and then
then we
form a
both
team.
met this really hot girl that we both like had a crush on.
Right.
And then
It just
Well.
takes you on a 13-year odyssey
yeah.
of love, relationships.
And Stacked probably wouldn't have happened. So
No, we would not.
thank
be
God
here.
that didn't happen, right, guys?
Because now we can live vicariously through movies. That's how life is.
This is the
now.
life that could have been, Ethan. Is this movie right here? Challengers, which is the topic of today's episode. Welcome back to Stacked, everybody. Episode 135, 135. That's where we're at. Today we're talking about Ethan's long lost love of the game of tennis, and yeah,
He's
you know,
actually
I'm
crying.
wearing my tennis
no.
uniform. This is the uniform that I'd wear
is it
when
actually?
I played varsity tennis.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it is.
Oh wow. I called it a golf shirt earlier.
Yeah.
But I guess golf and tennis fashion. can
I
kinda-
didn't say anything, but in my mind, I was just like, but,
Okay.
yeah,
I like it.
I forgot how much I loved the sport of tennis. Do I still have tears in my eyes?
Your eyes are a little watery.
Are you crying?
I tried to fake cry for that bit earlier,
And
I
it
actually
became
started
real.
crying.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
I'm kind of an actor.
He is. Wow.
But yeah, I used to play tennis a lot, and I started learning tennis from a very young age, and then I would play like all the time till high school, and I got my varsity letter 4 years in a row. I never, I always lost first round of state, but shit happens,
Dang, Brandon. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Shit happens.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
You know.
How's your baseball career going?
Yeah, you kind of have a challenger's relationship with baseball, right?
Challenging relationship.
Yeah, you're kind of like the Tashi Duncan of baseball. You got your injury and then you sort of had to like retire.
Not professional.
Now you're an analyst.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm an analyst of other things.
But yeah, I love tennis, and now I love it even more because of this movie.
Oh,
This movie, which is tennis is a backdrop, but it's not really about tennis.
No,
Tennis is more just the background behind everything that's going on. It's an analogy, as
tennis is used in this movie to heighten
you were saying. Mm-hmm.
what this movie is about.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, what is this movie about?
Oh yeah,
How would you describe challenge?
This movie is about power, lust, ambition, drive. Did I say desire yet? No. Desire. That's a big one.
You could say it multiple times.
All kinds of
It's a
stuff.
huge
Desire. It's a big part of this movie. Yeah, that's really what Challengers is about.
he just licked his mic.
Very
Sorry
nice.
to cut you off.
Anyway, yeah, Challengers isn't really a tennis movie per se. I mean, absolutely, tennis is a core part of the plot, and is more so like an allegory through which all of these themes come through.
Yeah.
And is I don't want to relegate this to like a plot device because that feels kind of diminishing. But and I gotta say real quick before we get into all these themes about desire and ambition, man, this is a very, very well shot movie.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen tennis given this kind of kineticism in the way that Guadagnino is able to instill into this film. And I think a big part of that, I got to shout out, I can never pronounce your name correctly, so I'm just gonna say the cinematographer for this film.
We'll
Put the name up. Put
Yep.
the name up. Put his face up too.
Yeah.
And
Fellas.
put a tennis ball. I don't know.
Do you two know who this fella is?
What'd he shoot?
He shot a bunch of other Luca Guadagnino movies and a Pichatong Wirsathakul. It's his DP. This guy
He
shot
shot
Uncle
Uncle Boonmi?
Boonmi and Memoria.
Oh my.
And once I
He's a framing god.
Great
that guy-
googly moogly,
yeah,
man.
he
What
knows
the-
that guy knows how to frame a shot and does it work well here. They do a lot of really great stuff. There's like an energy here that is so palpable. Yeah, it's I want to say more, but I don't want to take this away from you guys too much. Brandon, I'm curious what you think of the way
Of
this,
the shooting.
oh, just anything about this film.
I would say I was at first kind of overwhelmed with the amount of like stylistic sort of choices that Guadagnino and his cinematographer employ in this movie, because it's constantly switching perspectives and stuff like that. And I think while creative, like it is like a bit like rattling, but with a story like this where you're like dealing with lots of different relationships and how those like evolve over the course of their own relationship with the game of tennis, that I think develops things very interestingly, especially when you see like shots like from underneath the players or from the player's perspective,
That was a crazy
or
shot.
from the ball's perspective.
Oh man, when the ball cam hit, oh boy, that was nuts.
My jaw was on the ground.
Yeah.
First, actually, my jaw was on the ground. It was the first person.
Oh, yeah.
And when he goes, yes, I was like, this is incredible. I've never seen a sports movie shot so electrically.
I've never seen sports shot that electrically.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Not
Probably
just
'cause they
movies.
can't.
Well, they can.
I guess they could like strap GoPros onto
The only
players'
like,
faces.
the only sport that I can think of that like even comes close is like anytime there's like racing in them, but like that has like an inherent kind of like push to it. But
Well, you can mount it to something.
Yeah,
You can't really
and-
mount it to a piece of equipment.
yeah, that's true.
So,
But yeah, the shots in this film they're all so creative. Like even like there's this infamous shot where it's like the camera's underneath the tennis court shooting upward, and you see it's almost like
lines.
it's almost like the floor is hollow
or made of glass.
or made of glass or something, and it's so breathtaking. Also, I got to shout out, this is some of the best work I've seen from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Probably, I think their best score since Social Network, at least in my opinion.
I did a really intense workout at the gym the other day, and that's all I was blasting. And it made me just like push myself to my limits, man. I was dripping sweat, like, and when I was sweating, I was like, oh, I'm just like the characters in the movie.
I think I think the music's good. I just think it distracts at times.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I think it does nothing but heighten it.
Well, I will say that there's a very bold creative choice with the sound mixing.
Yeah.
'Cause we're obviously Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, their work's incredible here, but also whoever did the sound mixing on this and whoever was spearheading those scenes where it's dialogue scenes and the music is pretty much overpowering the dialogue.
Oh yeah.
Usually, like, I mean, it's like film school 101. Like, no, you don't do that. You need to work on the levels. But like here, it's used to such. It's so effective
It's
in
kinda
these scenes. Like, it really
Altman-esque.
heightens the tension. And I don't know. Like, I can understand the point where it can maybe be seen as distracting, but I think what it's doing is showing like the real power behind the words of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer that like you're trying to convey an emotion through the image, through the sound, through all the components that come together to make a movie. And I think the music is really what's spearheading some of these fantastic sequences in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah? I also think you're just a little easily distracted.
It doesn't work as well when you say it, Joe.
It doesn't work as well when I say it.
No.
What does that mean?
That's Brandon's joke, is what he means.
Yeah.
Oh. No, you checked me, but I'm checkmating you.
You can't checkmate somebody by saying the exact same thing. Everybody knows that.
Yes, you can.
This
That's
is
the
a
rule
sports
of
podcast. You
chess.
should know
the
that.
objective is the same on both sides.
I just think it doesn't match the tone of the scenes. Like, it's a little too loud. But I do think it's a good score. I could listen to this like alone, doing something else, and it would be totally like perfection for that.
Not working out.
Not working out.
Not
No,
working
not
out. What else
working
would
out.
you do to the score?
Laundry. Fold laundry.
Write a coaster?
I think
No.
it's like I don't know. I think it fuels the excitement of the film.
Oh.
Wow, that was nice.
We're
I was
getting
just inspired
intimate.
by the movie.
We're
Yeah.
intimate.
Yeah.
I think it fuels the excitement of this relationship between these three, because I think one thing is with the backdrop of tennis is you have this theme of competition.
Yeah.
And you have essentially this competition happening between these two men who are both in love, infatuated, lust, however you want to define it, because their relationship to Tashi is different on both sides.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it fascinating. They're very different people, but you have this competition going on between them. And I think what the music is doing is fueling the excitement of it all. Because I think we've been seeing a lot of films that kind of break down the typical what's the word I'm looking for? They're more monogamous relationships.
Right.
Where we're kind of used to like, oh, it's one partner per person. And I think we're seeing a lot of films challenge that idea. And I think this movie does that. Challenge. There you go.
Well, it's like this. Like, they talk about at the beginning of the movie when they're having the conversation on the beach.
Yeah.
Tennis is a conversation.
It is.
It's a dialogue between two people.
It's
It's
a
not
dialogue.
really it's not, yeah.
And you could argue that the score, like you said, heightens that, even in those dialogue-driven sequences.
It does. I think so. And that's why I was thinking, I don't know, I watched a really interesting video essay by a guy named Patrick Willems, very popular on YouTube in the film community. And he was saying that sometimes with film, like, it's not a matter of like keeping up with every single word that the characters are saying, as long as you're feeling the emotion and the purpose behind each conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through in a lot of the scenes here. And the music, I think, kind of expresses the emotion that's behind those words. And I think that's why it worked for me. Is
Why not
I
let
felt
just
the emotion.
actors do that?
I think the actors do that. And I think in conjunction with the score, together, you feel the excitement.
I like it when it kicks in when there is an emotional change in their performances. Like during that scene with... There's going to be spoilers, by the way, right?
Yeah.
It's come out 2 weeks since the film. We have someone in this room. He's not paying attention. You're not paying attention. He's good. Okay. Yeah. So spoilers. We definitely recommend you check this film out before you do it. But
Yeah. The scene with Josh O'Connor after she goes to Stanford, and they're like in the bedroom and they're having...
Yeah, in the dorm.
Yeah,
The dorm
yeah.
scene. Oh.
And then when the score kicks in there, that's probably when it worked best for me, whenever it was integrated into those dialogue sequences, because of the shift in the conversation. Can we just talk about something not tennis related or something?
What are you talking about? What? Oh! I thought he was talking to me.
Nice performance.
That
there.
was
Well done.
No,
You
I
sold,
was just
you
like,
sold that to him.
it wasn't
Well
a sell.
done.
It was just a weird
Oh, you
transition.
bought it. I'm just saying you bought it.
I didn't buy anything. I was confused by that segue. No, but yeah, I agree.
He's
That's
easily distracted.
Yeah, I told you.
that scene.
I'm a king.
Shut up.
All right.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that scene.
That scene. That scene was a standout for me too.
It really was. I think that might be the strongest, like singular scene in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much storytelling, and like I don't know if like I'm necessarily the right person talking about this, but I think our good friend Tori has been really passionate about intimacy coordination, and she spoke very highly about this film, and I think this is the scene that particularly stood out to her. I don't mean speak for her, but yeah, I think like the storytelling and like okay, little note in the scene, Josh O'Connor is they're canoodling, and
Hanky panky.
hanky panky.
Yeah.
He kisses her knee right before her injury. It's a little foreshadowing. I don't know if that's just me.
There's so much of that, though.
Yeah.
There's so much setup and payoff that's like nuanced in this movie.
that like you wouldn't like as a first time audience, it's gonna go right over your head. But it's just like those little touches that really help.
Little reaction shots here and there too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and also shout out to the editing.
Yes, very well edited.
Well, the editor's name is not on the top of my head. I don't know. Do you guys know who edited this movie? We're gonna put their
Grant
name.
Ward.
Michael Schusterman.
Yeah, no, but we're gonna put the name and the picture of this person who edited this film, because I think there's some really outstanding work here,
Yeah,
and I
it's
think every
gorgeous
cut
stuff.
feels incredibly intentional and really heightens the emotion of each scene. So I think there's some really just outstanding work across the board here.
Just outstanding, just craft, across the board.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the scene when Tashi breaks her knee.
Which was practical, by the way.
Yes,
Which is crazy.
It was completely practical. They built
There's a
built
picture that's going around.
Yeah, we can put
It's
the
like
picture up.
It's like a prosthetic that they have on C-stands.
I was like, what is this?
It's half a Zendaya.
It's literally just Zendaya's lower half.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I felt
and
her
that
pain.
shot. How long does that shot last on?
Quarter of a second.
Oh, yeah.
Quarter of a
tops.
second.
Yeah.
But
It sells.
it
so well.
sells.
And I felt her pain in that moment because, imagine being 18 years old and your whole life you've been building up to this career.
Yeah.
And you're basically you're providing for your entire family. This is like your destiny. And then in one instant, it's not just a knee break. It's like your whole life changes in that second.
Her scream when she hits the ground and, kind of like whimpering on the floor, like that hurt to listen to.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to that beach scene where they're having that conversation about school.
Yeah.
And like, aren't you going to become like a pro tennis player? Like, you're the best. And she's like, oh, like I can do more than hit a ball. But in that moment, I think she realizes that there's this flip and her like, oh, tennis would have been my like fallback, and now I have to really rely on other things because it's her passion's gone. Like, what can you do?
Well, I think that scene also is just more foreshadowing, just like how she's able to like learn about the business of tennis.
Oh yeah,
like
at the beginning of the film, when you show that like brief bit of their future life together.
Yeah, that's right. But just talking about that and sort of like, Tashi's character as a whole, I think it's a very intelligently like sort of critique on like the sort of the hustle mindset of a dream, and how having a dream in a capitalist society where that like if you love something, you can tell she loves tennis, she loves the game, and if she wants that to be her whole life, she has to the only way to like have that be your life in a capitalist society is you have to be power hungry. You have to have power, you have to take advantage of people, which she does, which every character does in this movie, but that's how she does.
Yeah.
Where she I feel like every one of the three main characters uses each of the other three, the other two characters in some way, and she uses them as a way to, to heighten her career.
Yeah.
And to heighten her status.
And I bet it's also like for her almost like vicariously living through them because they get to have the career that she always wanted as well.
That's right. Yeah.
It's an emotional fulfillment as well as a I guess financial one in that sense too.
Yeah. But sort of this, because they're often like addressing how these characters all came from wealthy backgrounds, except for Josh O'Connor.
Yeah,
I believe.
He sleeps in his car and all that, right?
Does
Well,
he
no,
come
he
from wealth?
he comes
He
from
does.
wealth.
He does.
But
Because they were talking about
But
his
he
house.
loses that because he wants to be something more, or his parents are disappointed in him.
Right.
One of
But
those.
A little careless, yeah.
sort of just like this ideology that people who come from power are, raised to continue this sort of toxic mindset of climbing the social ladder by taking advantage of other people.
Tennis is also a great choice for a sport to use that theme because I mean, I don't know very much about sports in general, but like tennis specifically. But I know that there are like people who compete in tennis professionally who some of them are like, like from the ground up, like built their whole career for themselves. But there are people who were kind of handed it on a silver platter. Even though, granted, they do train, they work hard, they're very talented.
Yeah.
But like, I've heard, I don't mean to ruffle any feathers, but I've heard that, like, for example, Rafael Nadal is like kind of a ground up kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I've heard, I don't know, but I've heard that Federer is kind of like he was given opportunity from the very beginning.
Right.
Even though he is very talented, I'm not.
No.
Saying that.
Most of the players are like that, except for, of course, like, the Williams sisters, as we saw in King Richard, but
tennis is a country club sport.
It is.
It's like
There's
that's
an elitist
it's
aspect
a
to
status sport, and you see that throughout the film. Like
golf.
a lot of people I saw sort of complained about like the product placement in this movie, and I'm like,
that's a huge part of tennis culture.
I'm like, you've never watched tennis then, because they're like, there's so much status in like, there's
the
like
brands.
they're always selling, like they're always advertising watches.
How many times has Federer sponsored a watch?
A watch.
Yeah.
The clothes they're wearing.
Yeah, he's always wearing Uniqlo.
Like you don't see athletes sort of like, there's like some serious high fashion.
Yeah, totally.
It's fashion and function in what they wear. Uniqlo.
Yeah,
and
they use that really well with the characters because like Mike Faist is wearing like these beautiful like like branded items, but then it seems, at least to me, Josh O'Connor seems like he's wearing like stuff like you'd get like straight off the rack at like Nordstrom rack.
He's not sponsored.
He's not sponsored like Mike Faith, and I don't know.
That
doesn't bother me at all.
That's written in the script. I read the first page of the script, which is actually a fantastic opening page.
Yeah.
No, I mean like
you just read the first page. You're like, I'm done.
No, it was like I only saw the first page. It was like literally just a picture of the first page. And I mean, like, you know what they say is like when scripts are being read, like the first page is what matters most. And this was like a really effective first page. And that was just in the character's description is like Mike Faist is like uniformed. And then Josh O'Connor's character, literally every article of clothing is a different brand. That is written in the script.
Yeah, because he is not a fashionable fella in this movie. But Mike Faist very much is.
Because he has to be.
He has to be because that's his
status.
I mean, not only is tennis like a game that is like that shows off that status, right? Because like unlike other sports, like I feel like the athletes are a little rougher around the edges, a lot more imperfections going on as far as what is like traditional. But like whenever I look at a tennis player, until the end of their set, it's like they are like they're models. They're well manicured and everything. It goes down to their uniforms even when they're playing.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting. And then pairing that alongside what tennis can be, which is actually a very mental game.
Oh yeah.
Because you think most sports are just physical, but there's actually a lot of strategy that goes into it, right? And I think that plays great into Zendaya's, Tashi's like controlling mindset as a character and where she gets that from. And it shows in her fashion and in what she wears, which is meant to be one part seductive and one part like professional, like the lead of this group or the lead of all the people involved. So I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the writer? What's his name?
Justin Kerr.
Potion Seller.
Yeah, I know. But what's his last name?
Kerr something. It starts with a K.
I don't want to mess up the pronunciation.
Put the name up here.
Yeah,
okay.
we're
Celine
just gonna be putting up
songs.
a bunch of
and then
names and faces.
Put a goofy face.
We don't want to
of his.
mispronounce any names, and we want to make sure that there's a name to all these credits. And that people
Justin.
know who's
This is a
behind all
very
this.
well-researched podcast, as you can tell. Well, we just got back from the batting cages. Like
we did. Literally, that's the truth.
We were partaking in sports of our own.
Yes. But he just completely floored me, because I've known him for years with his dumb YouTube videos where he just goes onto the photo booth on his Mac and just plays with the filters and just like riffs like these characters for just like 4 or 5 minutes,
In a perfect world, men like me would not exist. But this is not a perfect world.
And just that, to see that he sort of has this sort of intelligence to write this nuanced and very like deep relationship drama, like I read an interview with him where he's talking about sort of like the tennis as a dialogue scene, where he's like, yeah, tennis is a lot about relationships, and he wanted to make it a very like sexually fluid film because like he sees tennis as because tennis is always it's always men's tennis and women's tennis, so you're always playing against like your same like sex, so he's like, it's very homoerotic in that way. Mm-hmm. That's how he sees it. So he wanted to like somehow, he wanted to convey that through this film, which I think he perfectly did. Just like you said, like the strategy that they do in the game is also like the strategies that they're playing in terms of like their relationships.
It's even when they're like having conversations practicing tennis, you can see it in like the conversations that they're having, like the scene that kind of is like the huge setup for the end of the movie, where
putting the ball in the hole.
Yeah,
that I knew it was coming. Like when I saw that, I'm like,
no idea
when it really,
when I was like, he's not about to do that. Oh shit! I was losing my mind. And Ange can tell you.
And Luca Guadagnino, he drew that out like perfectly.
Yeah.
Because he stops, he gets a time penalty,
Yeah, it's like,
and you're
fuck
like,
off.
and you could tell you're like, this guy is like, he's contemplating to be like the biggest piece of shit ever right now. And just, he knows
He's not
like,
gonna follow through with
and
what he said.
you're like, is he gonna do it? Is he gonna? I'm like, oh, he's gonna do it. And then he does it, and I lost my shit in the theater too.
You can see in their minds operate.
just
There's no
so
dialogue
powerful.
in the
Yeah.
last 20 minutes outside of what the person who's judging the tennis match, the line judges, are saying.
Yeah.
Essentially, and that's interesting because it doesn't meaningful dialogue. Like it's not needed for the conversation because you're seeing these mental mind games play out in their actions and how they're like looking at each other. That's how you can tell that good performances, good writing, good direction are all paired together and making for like a film that is intellectually engaging as well as like extremely entertaining. That last tennis volley, I don't know what it's like a
Match.
I guess.
It's a match.
Well, yeah, but like it's like
What,
what's
set?
like one, but it's not a set. It's
It's called a point.
a point.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 point. The last point is like insane.
The match point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not even like the game deciding point. Because
Right.
regardless, Art jumps and he loses the point. But and the movie ends. We don't actually know who wins that game. Because it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about the ending too is when Mike Feist realizes, he sees the signal from Josh O'Connor,
Yeah.
where he puts the ball to the center that we learned earlier means that he and Tashi hooked up. The look they give each other is almost like a mutual look of respect.
Game recognizes game.
Game recognizes game. That's what they do. And what I love about that is I think those two characters realize at the end what this competition has given each other.
Yeah.
During this time where they've been separated, Mike Feist has really fallen off as a tennis player. It's kind of established he's pro, but he's struggling. He's losing matches that he should be winning.
Yeah.
And Josh O'Connor's sleeping in his car. He's not doing too well. But when they were both, Tashi was almost both of their mutual
Muses?
music. Yeah.
Yeah, muse is a good
exactly.
word.
Yeah.
And I think it gave them a sense of purpose. It gave them a sense of drive.
Totally.
And one thing that my girlfriend and I were talking about is that she was reading in one of her relationship books is that competition, and not only that, but creating a sense of uncertainty in a relationship can almost strengthen it because it gives you something to work for.
Yeah.
It gives you something to try to improve on. And I think that's a really interesting angle that this movie explores. Yeah. And one of the benefits of polyamory. Now, obviously, I'm not saying polyamory is better than monogamy or whatever. It depends case by case. It's whoever you talk to. But it is an argument to why polyamory could actually be somewhat helpful for relationships.
I think they forgot what their true drive was before, when they were doubles partners at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say this movie is painting women as distractions or only utilizable as sexual objects in film, but I think the film does examine how it's important to realize what your passion is for the sport, and that plays out in that final set point or match point.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I really connected to with this movie and what really took this movie to the next level for me on top of what the craft we already talked about and all that stuff is how the movie is for me what really resonated was how the film goes about analyzing these the physical barriers these guys have to go through and the emotional things that they have to go through while trying to find their drive again. And there's a lot of moral compromises that go on here. Tashi is not the greatest person in the world. She goes behind her husband's back, does all this stuff. Granted, at the end, it seems as though things are okay, but yeah, there is some bad stuff going on behind the scenes, and that's what really hooked me because it forces me as an audience member to question am I okay with this? Is this right? Because frankly, I don't like Tashi. I respect her as a person, but I don't I think that when she hooks up with Josh O'Connor towards the end in that car behind Mike Feist's back and kind of uses that to manipulate the two to hit their ambition and hit their drive, that I found really interesting.
I don't think any of them are bad. We had this discussion briefly before. We don't think these like as tennis players or even as like people themselves, like we don't think they're bad people. They act in very realistically negative ways, like ways that are abhorrent. They do action
Morally complex.
Yeah,
All of them.
and I don't think that grayness makes me dislike or like any of them more. I think everybody has their own preconceived biases, and I think they actually play really well with that.
Yeah.
Because I think based on your bias in the world or just like in general towards like personality types,
Yeah.
you might like dislike Josh O'Connor's character
Yeah.
or
He's
dislike
kind of
Zendaya.
an asshole in the movie.
And for me, like I didn't like him.
Yeah.
But I like Tashi and Mike Feist art. You know.
Yeah. Like for me, I liked if we're picking favorites, not that I have one, but I would say my favorite character is Art, and his struggle of like finding his drive again, and kind of feeling like he wants to almost retire because he feels washed in the sport, and he finds it, but almost through some not always the most moral of avenues through which he finds his drive, through Tashi and through Josh. Yeah, I don't know. I love that the moral complexity, and like Brandon said, based on your own kind of preconceived ideas about like the way you view people, you might align yourself with one person over another in the way like Brandon seems to align with Art and Tashi, but
Yeah.
I still seem to solely align with Art.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
I find them all to be just incredibly fascinating characters, and I think honestly the dynamic I connect to the most in this movie is between I know the actor's name better than I know the characters' names, but Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor.
Patrick and
Art and
I've noticed that I'm very moved by depictions of masculine relationships, friendships, romantic, doesn't matter what it is. And I think especially in the sports world, when you're in competition, I think both characters kind of portray a different version of masculinity and how each of them kind of struggle with their own version of masculinity. Like Mike Feist's character, especially at the end, because he's fallen off, he and Tashi, their sexual relationship has faltered. They don't have that connection. They don't have that drive. There's that great bedroom scene where they're having that conversation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And he's asking her for some emotional vulnerability. But
he's not just asking for that. I think he's asking for for motivation.
And
Like,
not only that, yes, absolutely.
That scene, like, because at first he tells her that, expecting her to get mad, but then you can see his like dissatisfaction at her reaction.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Tell me this. I'm playing for both." He's trying to convince her.
Yeah. It's like, tell me, and then he says the line like, "Tell me it doesn't matter what happens."
But she won't.
And exactly, she's not giving him that sense of conflict that he's so used to. Versus Josh O'Connor's character, where his life is in complete shambles, but like he has that like masculine prowess. That confidence never wavers, and he literally like takes Tashi aside, and he's still pursuing her, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to coach me. Like leave him, come coach me," which is obviously
very alpha.
Yes, it is, but like I think those two characters balance each other out very well. They kind of represent both ends of the spectrum. You have the more sensitive, more like vulnerable Mike Feist character, but then you have the more like chest puffed out, like your kind of typical masculine guy with Josh O'Connor. And I think their relationship, I felt the energy between those two like so much. Like you can say it was erotic, you could call it whatever it was, but I think their chemistry, those two actors, like my God, casting director, there's an Oscar coming up for casting.
Not this year, but next year.
Is it okay? Is it not? I thought it was
not.
coming in this
No,
year.
'cause-
Okay, well,
'cause
if
the
it
year
was
already started,
in the
so.
hypothetical Oscars where we have it, I would love to bring this in the conversation because these are both actors. They're not on, in terms of stardom, they're not on Zendaya's level. In terms of Mike Feist has West Side Story and Josh O'Connor, this is actually the first I've seen of him.
I think this might be my first time seeing him
And
too,
like
unless
these two coming on the screens and absolutely blowing me away. Between the churro scene, everybody knows the churro scene.
Underwhelming.
Goodness.
When he
Underwhelming.
moves the chair,
Yes.
that is such an important shot. I feel just like establishing like their relationship and how they feel, how close they want to be to each other.
They are. They are.
That's what that.
I
thing's
think
meaning.
they're both like attracted to Zendaya, but there is that attraction to each other.
Yeah.
Where those two bring something out of each other that they can't find anywhere else.
Where she goes in the bedroom scene, I like that we can just like establish like not the hotel.
You could just say the name of the scene,
Yeah.
and like we know
We know.
exactly
Yeah.
what you're talking
when,
about.
when
The
she's
dorm
when
scene.
she's like this, she's like, "You two, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
You guys
You guys ever?" And they're like, "What? No."
No.
But you're like, "Well, yeah, come on, you should." And they do.
And you can tell that like one is one is a lot more hesitant than the other.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Like when they're talking about the story about
Teaching him to masturbate.
teaching her to masturbate.
But
Yeah.
even then, like, there's that scene. Again, it's a brief moment, but when he's in the locker room, and that we're like jumping around time periods here, but when he's in the locker room swiping through to find somebody to like stay with.
Oh yeah,
he does.
He's just going through everybody, and he stops on the man for a second,
and
and
then
then he's like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
sure."
why not?
you know,
Yeah, exactly. So I think it plays with that in such a great way, because I think a lot of films either fully embrace it or shy away from it entirely. Whereas this film, I think, has like a wonderful approach to depicting both homosexuality and heterosexuality, and both bisexuality.
yeah, or just sexual fluidity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like I wouldn't call this queer
No.
queer baiting in any way, you
No.
know, because like it's nuanced.
Mhm.
It's not like there's actually things you can make it like people can pull their own things from it, you know, which for some like, you know, there are like some movies and shows that were like, oh, they're building up like this homosexual relationship between these two, you know, there's all these signs, but then they don't do anything with it, you know, and it's just, and that's, you know, that's where the term queer baiting came from, you know, because it's just like, oh,
It's just there for the sake that it's
there for the sake, and they don't do anything with
for
that,
the quota.
you know.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
studio quota.
But here, there's like, no, you can actually like,
There's depth
There's
and
so
reason.
much depth. You can pull hard evidence, you know, and it's not just like people usually just like headcanon like these relationships,
Yeah.
you know, because
Shipping and
because
stuff.
like you know filmmakers just don't give enough, you know, so then people have to do that. But no, here there's so much. It's so rich, you know. Oh, I love that.
You could view it either way, but I think it's pointing to.
That's what makes it so great, though.
Yeah.
Like that everyone, you know, because you know sexuality is a spectrum. I think that's so cool that like anyone can pull any sort of like analysis of the relationship of each of these characters.
All
in this
three.
film. Yeah, of all three, and they're all equally valid, which is awesome. I love that, and it just like
That's the richness of Guadagnino's direction, I think.
that's the richness, and that's what makes a film like last. I feel.
Oh yeah.
You know, where that's what's making this film so big, because people can't stop talking about it. We can't stop talking about it.
It gets in your
You know?
head, and it just, the more you think about it, the more layers you're able to peel back.
Right.
And that's what makes it so fascinating and so fun to talk about.
Yep.
Can I ask you guys? Have you guys been fans of Luca Guadagnino's work thus prior to Challengers, or were you like, or were you not on board?
Well, I've seen 2 movies of his besides this one.
I've seen
I
2 as
saw
well.
I think I've seen 2.
Call Me By Your Name when it first came out, and I think I was just a little too immature to fully read it, so I do need to revisit it. And then another I just watched for the first time earlier today, which is A Bigger Splash, which is
I
the
liked
second
it.
movie in his Desire trilogy. And I gotta say, that movie didn't work for me quite as well as this one. I think while Challengers, the relationships and the analyses of each character, I felt is like so deep and like so fleshed out, and I was able to tune in to what he was trying to say. I can't say I was able to do that quite as well with A Bigger Splash. I think things got muddled in that movie. But those are the 2, and I've seen stuff from Suspiria.
Okay.
But that is more like that movie is more from like a horror perspective.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. For me, I've only seen 2 of his films prior. I've seen Call Me by Your Name, which I liked, but you know, kind of maybe similar to Joey. I was still, you know, a little freshman in film school, so
Yeah.
might not have had the big brain that I have now.
His
And
head
I
has grown like
and
2 times since then, guys.
And about a year ago or so, I watched Bones and All,
Yeah.
which I enjoyed.
Crazy
You know,
movie.
yeah, kind of a wild movie.
Um,
Also, another intimate
Very
sort
intimate.
of depiction of desire.
Yeah, and kind of
Unique.
taking it in a
Literal,
subversive kind of way. Yeah.
Literally subversive.
Literally.
Seriously.
Yeah, I've liked his work, but I haven't like loved his work. But I think Challengers has hit. I mean, it when I came out of the theater, I was like, oh, that's a very nice 4.
This is his
But
best
then
movie.
it climbed to 4.5 like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is his best movie thus far. hey, I'm praying that he does it even better.
I've seen Bigger Splash. I've seen Bones and All. I've seen Call Me by Your Name. I've seen this. I really like Bigger Splash. It's kind of, I think it's his least, what's the word? I would say like least balanced film. Like I feel like he's coming to his own as a filmmaker, even though it's not his first movie. Yeah. It just feels like he's playing with tone and story chronology really nicely.
I completely agree. I feel like Challengers feels like a more refined version of his directorial style than that was.
Then Call Me by Your Name, I'm not really like a big fan of. Like I rewatched it somewhat recently, last year and a half, and I still sort of was like, the acting is great and it looks beautiful, but as far as like the narrative and the themes, I wasn't really connecting. But I really enjoyed Bones and All. I just think it's such a wild film, and I know a lot of people would like watch it and on the surface be like laughing at things like Sully in that movie and certain line deliveries, but it captures intimacy in such a unique way.
And like that kind of like outsider kind of love.
And Challengers kind of furthers that, you know, which is why I'm so excited for his next movie to come out this year.
Yeah, he has 2 movies coming out this year.
Queer, starring Daniel Craig.
Also written by Justin.
Name?
Justin K. last name.
Another collaboration between
Justin.
those two, which after Challengers, consider me excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll watch anything between those two. You know, I really liked Call Me by Your Name. I thought that movie was fantastic. Sort of just like, I think it depicts sort of like a young crush really well. You know. And just sort of like not only the bliss but the heartbreak that comes with that.
When it doesn't work out,
because
last shot,
the last shot of him looking to the fire, like with the Sufjan Stevens, that destroys me. You know,
little Timmy.
And I need to rewatch it. I was like way too immature when I first saw it. I just think this was like nearly 7 years ago.
All of his films are dealing with intimacy.
And he does.
Even Bigger Splash, you know. That is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Intimacy, desire, lust. Like, he definitely explores. He has like a lot of thematic through lines throughout his work.
Yeah. And I think people just focus too much on the age difference in Call Me by Your Name, where like I don't think that film's sort of like saying that like it's okay.
No, I think the film actually makes
it. It's sort of like, you know, we've when we were younger, we've all had like a crush on another person.
Did we all have a crush on a teacher, right? When you were in school,
or someone older?
Yeah,
someone older.
Someone older. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
And just like, you know, I don't think it ever like paints.
Yeah, it doesn't endorse it.
It doesn't
endorse it.
Even though Armie Hammer's character sort of does like follow through and with Timothée Chalamet's desires in some scenes, you know, I don't think it's ever shown as like something that should be, you know, celebrated, but more or less we're like, he's just showing like, this is like, look what this character, you know,
because
like,
it's about
feeling. It's all about what Timothée Chalamet is feeling.
Yeah,
you know?
It's about the emotional nuances of a not so great situation, but like it's not endorsing it. It's more about what do these characters feel. Yeah, and by the end, it's like it doesn't work out, and
if anything, like
it's, you know.
his like he is taken advantage of in that film. Yeah, his emotions are.
He ends horribly.
Yeah, and if anything, it shows that like it is.
Shouldn't happen.
It is. Yeah, this shouldn't happen because it'll end. It won't end well. Yeah, you know, and you know, Bones and All, also very intimate, very unique way of, you know, showing love. You know, like just. You know, I won't spoil it, but the finale of that movie is sort of like what a beautiful like dedication like of showing that someone's love. Yeah, you know, that showing that someone loves someone else. You know,
always be a part of me, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of art house, actually.
I'd say it's just Italian. Also Challengers. I think I could argue. I mean, I haven't seen the rest of his film. Of the ones I've seen, it's his most Italian. This is such an Italian melodrama with the heightened music. You know, like the sort of the fantastical editing and production design. Like, remember when they're in the parking lot and it's during the
wind,
the hurricane,
whatever, yeah.
And I saw someone like tweet like, where did all that paper come from? Because there's just like all these sheets of paper.
What is
flying
the
every-
paper budget on this movie?
And that's the thing you gotta learn about making a good film. Like, it doesn't matter if it makes sense. If it looks cool, just do it.
Or if
You
it
know?
heightens the emotions.
If it heightens the emotions,
Yeah.
and because looking cool, that will heighten your emotions because you're like, oh my god, that looks.
I was actually
amazing.
wondering when I was
You know?
watching that scene, like, did they shoot that during a weather storm or was that intentional?
Wind
And if it
machines.
was intentional, man, how many wind machines did they have on that set?
I
I mean,
think
the
my
country club,
God.
yes.
I think
the
that was-
city, no.
Yeah.
I think that was
That's my bad.
intentional. No, I think that was fully intentional because it's sort of like. It's the storm,
Yeah. No,
it's not the calm before the storm. It is the storm.
I think it added
you know?
so much to that scene. I'm just
Right.
my practical filmmaking
I know that-
brain is trying to
no,
tackle like
those-
what was the wind well, like where'd they get these wind machines? Like how many did they have set up? Like
It was probably that big ass wind machine
How'd
from
they
the
deal with
Singing in the Rain.
continuity? Like-
Remember that one? Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that would have been all right. Reset.
yeah,
we got
exactly.
reset.
That would have been a
get all the paper again.
exactly. That would have been something on a tough day on set, but man,
Right.
did it pay off?
Or like the shot that immediately follows after when she returns to the hotel and she just like fades into the hallway.
Yeah.
She does, and then oh man, that's the when she walks in on her daughter, and Mike Feist is sleeping with their daughter because
Yeah,
It's so
he was
sweet.
he didn't want to be alone,
exactly.
and he's with the oh
he's
man,
a
that
little
is
boy.
that's the sauce, man. That's
He
the
never
drama.
ate.
This movie has all the sauce.
It's such a saucy movie.
Oh,
So-
it is the most saucy.
We've discussed a lot about what we really loved and liked about the movie. Is there anything that you guys would point to and be like, I'm not quite into it?
There's nothing that like really stood out as like a big time negative for me. There's stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like just like apathetically like, all right, about. I'm trying to think if there's anything that really like bogged me down about this movie. How about you? I mean, I know you two, like, you guys both give
I'm gonna be
fives.
honest. No,
yeah,
this usually it takes a watch or two, but I'm like, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Like, and I'm gonna stick
praise.
with that. It's an all timer. I think it's an all timer for
We've
me.
had 3 all-timers this year for you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, good. I mean, real good.
This is what I said on Letterboxd. Like, I feel like I've been such a sourpuss around like movie hype culture. Like with Barbenheimer, with Dune, it's like all these movies that were like huge in the film community and just didn't really sit with me.
Yeah.
And I've been feeling like a little frustrated because of that, because I want to be a part of that. I want to see what other people are seeing. This is like the first movie in a while where I'm like, the hype is real.
I just don't get behind that.
I'm like, what?
Hyped.
Hyped?
Please,
That
Avengers
is
no,
Endgame
I
not
mean,
bullshit.
that is not true at all.
You were on the Dune
dumbass.
train with us.
No. I
Avatar:
wasn't.
The Way of Water.
No.
Yeah, Avatar: The
You
Way of
saw
Water.
that movie twice in one day, you
Yeah.
numbskull.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean like, oh, like I'm not watching it because of the hype. I'm
You
watching it
bought a
because I like
beanie
it.
for that movie.
Yeah, because I like the movie.
You were counting down the.
Well, no,
seconds.
No, you
it's
bought
not-
it
I'm
before.
saying-
when
I'm
I
saying-
say hype, I mean like in terms of like walking out of a movie feeling that excitement with everybody
Oh,
else.
well, like,
not in
no.
terms of like anticipation for the movie.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
talking
then
about
fair
you
enough, fair
walk
enough.
out of it and it's like, yes, I
Yeah.
get it. I see like what other people are, why they're calling it a masterpiece.
You never
like
get-
I've been out of that
yeah.
loop on certain releases that have come out recently. And like this is the first one in a while where I'm like, yes.
Just don't get
like,
wrapped up
I'm-
in the
I'm on
discourse.
this train. I'm hopping on this hype train.
I think this film has cracks.
I mean, that's
All right.
fair for you to say.
Yeah,
I mean,
I-
theory of subjectivity, Ethan.
Yeah. Don't
just
retort
me.
that.
What?
You're
what
the
are
only
you-
one who believes in it.
I only So why is this not objectively a perfect movie?
I personally, I know the movie's not trying to do this. I had this conversation with Evelyn after we watched the movie. I would say it's not the point, but I did want to feel more for the Mike Feist Zendaya relationship beyond what I did care about, because I wanted to buy it more. But it seemed like the point of the movie was not to buy the relationship, but to buy their tennis like mentor sort of coach training.
You know what I have to say to that?
Yeah.
I think they wanted to buy it just as much as you did too.
Yeah.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're trying to make this thing that just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where they're, and that's what like makes them sort
See,
of.
but I want to
numb.
but I want to get there. I want to. I don't need like 10 scenes of their married life or whatever. I need one. You know.
we did have it.
Yeah, at the
But
beginning.
it opens
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows like how like
Maybe a
just
little later in the movie. then.
unexciting it is. As a matter of fact, the opening kind of threw me through a loop because I was expecting this really like, oh man, I'm gonna feel the sexual tension right away. But
Yeah.
it starts and it's
Yeah.
like their relationship's dead. and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
like they have no connection. But then you explore how they got to that point. I love how this movie is framed.
But we
and
don't
structured.
explore it.
I think the
I
most.
think we do.
We don't. From
I
when
100%
from the Applebee's date to the end.
Applebee's. That was great.
That's like
It's as
we
soon
get
as,
nothing.
It's because as soon as the trio is broken up,
yeah.
they all give each other something.
And
I
also,
think that detachment hinders it and helps it in places, and
also,
that's why I'm like
it's
it misses out on that perfection status.
I don't think it's not about those two.
it's
It's
about,
about
the
him and
trio.
Josh O'Connor.
It's about him
Yeah.
and Josh O'Connor, but it's about all three of them and what each of them give to each other.
Right.
And that's why, like, it is kind of a depiction of how in a polyamorous relationship you can get different things from different partners.
Well, yeah.
And that's not a bad thing,
Yeah.
you know?
You can find fulfillment from more than one party.
See, but that's just my subjective opinion about that.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
fair.
Well,
I'm just
like-
arguing my subjective reaction to your subjective opinion.
Yeah.
What have I done?
Look what, yeah.
Go check out our Civil War review if you're
What have I
totally
done?
lost of what the hell we're talking about.
But yeah, that's basically the only major like flaw I have. Everything else is like minor. Like, would I have liked
Little things.
Little things
Yeah.
like
Bring
just
down the
s-
levels of the sound,
just a little
of the
bit,
music,
you know, just a little bit.
No, bring it down a decibel or two.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Or, but
That's,
Go back into the
I
mix.
can
Go
do
back
that.
into Pro Tools.
I
Like,
can
I'm
do
bringing
that.
this down.
let him in. Let him in the
Let him
mixing
into
booth.
the sound
I can
mix
do it.
booth
Let me
for
do
the
it.
4K.
I can do it at the job that I have currently. If I go to a theater, I could totally wreck somebody.
That's not
Hey,
how the filmmakers intended it.
But yeah, I everything else is like minor. The script, the performances, the direction, they're all wonderful. But I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
It grows on you too. Chris, I'm with you. When I was walking out, I was like four and a half.
But it's stuck.
and then
Stuck
4.5 hard.
Yeah. And
After
I'm like, maybe one day a 5, but not right now.
Not
for
right
me.
now.
Not right now for me. I have one dumb thing like that. It's totally
What
like
is
not
it?
a big deal.
Oh, I
Yeah.
want to hear it.
Okay, this is like a small critique, but this is just me, and I don't.
It's a little nitpick.
The littlest nitpick, and I'm like, it really doesn't affect the movie.
Yeah.
So the scene where Josh O'Connor and Zendaya are outside the car during the windstorm, all that stuff.
Right.
They kiss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do step printing, which is when you crank down your shutter but
That's the
double your
one car
frames.
wide
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
trick.
You're not that guy, Luca. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
You're not that guy. I'm sorry, man. No, I'm kidding. I think anyone should be able to use that technique, but I don't think I think he used that to heighten the shock and like the excitement and the almost like, oh my god
And
moment.
like how the characters are like
Yeah,
how
like-
they're perceiving time, which is
Right.
how it's used in like
Yeah.
in
Tennis,
Wong Kar Wai
yeah.
film.
I don't think he shoots it well though.
I'm with you.
I kind of agree, but it didn't bother me. I
That's
saw
why,
it and
yeah.
I saw it and I was like, okay, that came out of nowhere.
Do you think it's
You know,
because they
I-
shot digitally versus on film? Do you think that makes a difference?
I mean, I
How
don't.
it's executed?
We'd have to do a test.
I
but
We would have to do a test.
but
We'll put it to the
I
test
wouldn't
right
I wouldn't
now.
necessarily think that would make a difference. I think it's just I don't know.
Maybe it's because the storm didn't look like particularly great visually.
What?
Yeah. Because here's the thing: if you have like, it's like an outer. It's not.
What if
does-
it was a real storm?
But it-
and he's like, it wasn't good enough.
Oh no, it wasn't though. It wasn't though. It was obviously like wind machines on set, and then they did things with visual effects to make it like even more expressive because, like you said, it's an Italian melodrama.
Yeah.
So if there is like
Storm.
visual effects things that maybe got in the way, that might have hampered it a little
I
bit
think the
too.
reason for me it didn't land was more so that I think, and maybe I'm just holding it too high of a standard, but I think the way Wong uses it is because time is so significant in the way his films
Yeah.
are constructed and the way themes play into time, but time has nothing to do with challengers.
Or maybe the
And him manipulating time. Although yes,
I
it
could
is-
argue in
it-
that
it-
moment because
No,
that's
yeah, I
like
see
how
that.
many? That's like what 13
I-
years of like tension and build up, like,
Yeah.
and they're finally releasing it.
I just think that style shift did not land for me.
or
That's
maybe
I get it.
because like the rest of the movie looks so good
Yeah.
that just like feels like a jarring misstep.
I just feel so fulfilled by this movie.
Mm.
It's like
Yeah.
eating just like an amazing meal with like everything you could ask for, and you walk away feeling completely satisfied. Like that's how I walk away from this movie, and I love a movie that, like I was saying, where you can dissect it for hours and still find new angles to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me is just so exciting, and that's what I love about movies. And this movie gave me that. And going to what you're saying, Chris, though, there's a lot of stylistic choice on display. I think Luca is firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And it worked for me, but I can understand, like, maybe it becomes a little jarring at times.
Definitely.
Because there's definitely some stuff thrown in there.
Like some freeze frames.
Exactly.
You know.
I
think the freeze frames are more jarring for me.
Oh, that was actually
I
fine
liked
for me.
it. Yeah.
No, I didn't say I didn't mind it. I just I was just taken aback. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it, and it just like. But I still think this film's flawless.
But also, it's like this movie cost $50 million. Mid-budget movies are back.
Yeah, and it's
They
a
are definitely
hit.
back. It's hits.
It's a
It
hit.
did. It made great box office.
Great
and
reviews.
I think it goes to
For
show,
rated R movie.
like, if you make a
Yeah.
good movie, people are gonna turn out.
right.
Like, word of mouth is more important than ever with social media and, like, the way people engage with film, like Letterboxd, Twitter. If you make something that's worthwhile and worth people's attention, they're gonna come see it.
You think it's gonna have legs?
I think so.
I
I
don't
think this is gonna be great counter programming to, like, the basic blockbusters of, like, the summer.
Like the
Like, we have-
insane If coming out.
Yeah, well, like we have, we
Like
have
Fall Guy,
If like those
Yeah.
movies are gonna, they're gonna definitely like make big box office. But I think this is gonna be a great like, oh yeah, we can also go see Challengers. Like
Right.
it's a great alternative, and I think counter programming is really gonna benefit it.
I think this is gonna send a wonderful message to studios about just like,
Invest in talent.
sort of bringing back the star and the mid-budget because they sort of threw it away, and I bet they're like asking themselves like, was this type of film like, was it best left unburied? I don't know if that was like a sort of what. I just don't know like if they just tried to like to keep that away from audiences, but now I feel like they're realizing that that's like something like that we yearn for, and
Yeah.
that actually is like what keeps this industry alive are those films.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, this feels like a movie that would come out in like 1994.
Yeah.
And like make like $300 million,
Right.
And like we don't see that anymore. We've, like you saying, Brandon, it's either really small indies or you get like the $200 million mega blockbusters.
You don't get those mid-budgets anymore.
And
50 mil?
exactly, and that's
Right.
Civil
but I
War was
miss them.
successful, and that's sort of like a
Civil War did pretty well.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like in terms of like star power, I mean, Josh O'Connor, Mike Feist, they're up and coming, but like Zendaya, she's very popular. Like she's
Yeah.
been a star. Like this isn't like, oh, this is her breakthrough. Like no, she's been established for a bit.
No, yeah.
But I will say this is my favorite performance of hers.
Oh yeah.
She
Bar none.
like
Singular performance,
she had me by the neck.
Yeah.
And wouldn't let go, and I didn't want her to let it go.
neither.
Neither did those guys.
She had,
Hey.
but she had my undivided attention because I think that character was perfectly written for her, and I think she performed it perfectly.
Perfectly.
Like she conveyed
Like-
that sense of power, that sense of wanting, and like what her quest in trying to find purpose post her injury.
Right.
I think she did an amazing job, and
I know-
I'm so happy to see her blow up in this way. Like I think this movie's gonna skyrocket her to new heights.
I know it's earlier in the year, but like
It's not gonna
she's got to be in that best actress.
It's not
run.
going to happen.
What?
It's not going to happen.
I think you're a fool.
I hope I'm wrong, but I don't
Okay,
think it's
well you're
gonna
gonna
happen.
be. So
All
I
right.
think she's.
congratulations.
I will remember this moment, and I
hope
will
you all
laugh at
remember
one
it.
of
We're
you.
gonna clip this in our
Clip it.
Oscar
We are.
nominations reaction video.
She is gonna be nominated,
Well,
and
I hope you're right. but
and
I
there's
don't
like a
think
70% chance she wins.
so. No, there is not. Oh, God.
Okay,
we just don't know what the competition looks like.
we don't know, but I think this is her. Like this is such a moment, and it's so big.
Yeah.
I think you're getting wrapped up in the hype of this movie.
I think I'm leaving it unburied. I'm this
Actually,
sort of,
best left.
he's-
unburied.
I think it's actually best left unburied.
unburied. Yeah, I agree.
This sort of idea,
Not only that, but I walked out of the movie. Now, I think this was wrapped up in the hype, but I turned to Tori and I said, like, would not be surprised if that's our best screenplay winner.
Yeah.
I think the screenplay is so layered, so And like you have this like very interesting personality behind it.
Right.
And I think I just love how it's structured, and there's just so much to dive into. And it's the kind of film that I could see this being taught in screenwriting classes.
Like,
agree.
there's gonna have to be some insanely good screenplays coming out later this year.
I think it's definitely probably going to be nominated.
Yeah,
but like I walked out thinking like I could see that winning.
Where are you guys getting this from?
Just what I saw.
I watched the movie.
I watched the film.
I watched the film, and I'm like, it's gonna be a fucking crazy year.
I can see it, but I don't feel that passionately about it.
Hey, don't fucking interrupt me. I'm talking. I watched the film, and I said, I don't know, like, if it would be absolutely crazy if there's a film to top it, you know? I would love, listen, I'm not saying, like, I would love it. I'm not saying, like, oh,
I think we would love to see a film come along.
I'm saying what a year it would be if there's a film that would top Zendaya's, like, if there's an actress that would top Zendaya's performance, and if there's a film screenplay that would top this one.
Yeah,
you know?
I'd love to see it.
But as far as I'm concerned,
masterpiece.
As far as I'm concerned, and how like years usually play out, and the amount of good performances, screenplays that we do get, I'm fairly confident that they will be in the nominations.
I'm on board with you.
Yeah,
I'm on the Challengers hype train. I'm
Yeah.
there. I'm at the conductor's seat. I'm blowing that horn.
I'm shoveling the coal, baby.
There we go.
Let's do it.
All right, guys.
Go ahead.
Real quick, is there any like comps that you want to bring up? Did this movie make you think of any other films?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you make it think of?
It made me think of an anime, actually.
Oh, what is it?
Initial D.
Really?
Because I feel like that movie does for drift racing what this movie does with tennis. Where it's like the foundation of Initial D is total Japanese like high school melodrama, and it's very soap opera-y, you know, and it's very dramatic, and all the emotions and these relationships between the characters are heightened by the races. So when you're watching these races, it's not only you're not only just like have it in because I want the main character to win this race.
Yeah.
There's always like if he wins this race, or if this character loses this race, and you always know that the main character is going to win the race, which is what makes it more interesting. Is like, oh, but what are the consequences of him winning going to be?
Yeah.
You know, and it has, this movie uses like very similar 90s like house music as a soundtrack.
Right.
Challengers. Initial D uses Eurobeat.
Using the sport, the competition as a backdrop for the actual interpersonal drama between the characters.
And that's what made that anime so fun to watch, because like there's like one time where one character is like a woman promises like, if you win this race, like I will lose my virginity to you. And he's like, fuck, I gotta win this race. And he wins it. And when he's going to get ready, he gets stuck in traffic. And she thinks that she just ditched him. And so she leaves, and then he shows up, and he never sees her again. And he's like, and it's one of the most crushing moments in the whole show. And I watched it with Sasha and Ben, my roommates from college. And we were, that was what a night that was. Cause we were just like, it was one of the biggest fumbles ever.
Yeah.
It destroyed us.
Not only that, but that like this movie shows how much power is in sexuality.
Yeah.
And in desire. And how people can use that to get with where they want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Brandon.
Love and basketball.
Yeah.
I think the way their passion for the sport sort of drives their relationship, as well as their skill and like how good they get. You know, they really are like acting as like equal and opposite reactions, like a drive, but also like a repellent, like any great romance. I don't think it's got like any like of the same like love triangle like arc that this film does, but it's more so about how sports can act as like a conduit for our like desire to be more, to be better, our passions and such like that.
Right.
And I think it nails it in the same sort of way. That was the only comp that immediately came to mind.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chris?
Actually, funny enough, on the drive over here, Ange and I were just listing out ideas for like love triangle films, where films center around that. But after kind of like talking with you guys about it, I'm realizing that more so what makes this movie work is, like you said, the use of tennis as a backdrop against which the actual story at play is unfolding.
Yeah.
So a lot of the films that Ange and I came up with were like ones that are a bit more, let's say, traditional in the way they depict a love triangle. You know, like I'm thinking Past Lives is an obvious one, and there's that link.
Oh
there,
man,
right? But
I loved
but like you know, there's all the other stuff, right? Like Y Tu Mama Tambien. There's Her. There's Empire Strikes Back is also a love triangle story.
Yeah.
But
abruptly ended in episode 6 though.
yeah. But Ethan, you talking about Initial D brought to mind another racing film for me that is also heavily melodrama.
Yeah.
Speed Racer, the Wachowski Speed Racer, because it's all about the family's love for racing and their sense of camaraderie among one another.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the movie uses racing as a way to show how they divide from one another as well as how they unite. You know, when they build the car together at the end of the film, or like when Speed leaves at some point and like. But
wait, his name is Speed?
His name is literally Speed. He has his brother named Rex. His name and his last name, believe it or not, Brandon, is Racer.
Yeah. His brother's name is Rex. But then he goes undercover. Undercover.
And his name is X. His name is Racer X.
Racer X.
You guys could be lying to me right now.
I promise you, Brandon, on our friendship, I'm being serious.
Tried and true 60s manga and anime right there.
Oh. So yeah, I thought of that, and
that's good. That's a good comp.
Wild.
What about you, Joe?
For me, a recent movie that came out just last year, Todd Haynes' May December. Did you guys see that one?
Yeah.
No,
I think
the Charles Melton relationship.
Yeah, I think that these films are very comparable in terms, mostly in tone.
Yeah.
In terms of how, like we were saying, how like it's melodrama.
Yeah.
And how like the emphasis is on the emotion of how these characters are feeling in certain sequences. But not only that, but like how sexuality is used. Like I kind of just said this earlier, but like how sexuality can be used for control, for power. And I think you see that a lot between the characters in that film. And I walked out of this film immediately being like, man, I want to rewatch May December. I think it would make a fantastic double feature.
Yeah.
Like if I was programming something like at the New Beverly Cinema, like those two would be like, that would be like a great double bill.
The Favorite, maybe.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen The Favorite.
it's right there.
What?
Oh,
I haven't
so
seen
good.
it.
It's so good.
Guys, I've been
how'd you
like
miss
very
that
like
one?
I've been shy away from like any Yorgos stuff. I've only seen the Poor Things. That's the
Wow.
only Yorgos movie I've
Oh,
seen.
dude.
I don't know why. I haven't made the leap. I haven't made the dive.
Okay,
the
I will.
bigger
I don't
splash
blame you
into
for that
his
because it took me a while.
He
to
couldn't
get
get over the fisheye
I couldn't get over it, and then I just like I watched it and I had that Danny DeVito like.
I get it. If you see it in a trailer, it's like kind of
It's
disjointed.
out of context. It's
yeah.
so jarring, but I promise it works.
It works. For his tone as a director,
Yeah.
and The Favorite kind of does that too with its
Totally.
depiction of the relationship between these three women.
Yeah.
You know, it's the power dynamics. You can read my old review for it on Letterboxd, but I talk about how each.
Here, put the link right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna
sure,
actually
sure,
put it up
sure.
on the
Put
screen.
the
real
link
quick.
on camera, and then what you do is just like you have to retype it. Right. X Z dash 4. Jesus, lowercase s.
But it's all about the female power dynamics and how they kind of manipulate somebody who has a bunch of power into giving them that same power. And the same goes for Wild Things, you know, that erotic thriller we watched for a movie night last year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Over there.
Sex, Lies, and Videotape, also a great one. All about power, all about sex. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Great.
It's great.
Yeah.
Sasquatch Sunset.
Sasquatch Sunset.
Sex and nature.
There's kind of a love triangle, you know. There's Jesse Eisenberg's Sasquatch. He wants to.
Are they related?
I don't know.
That's what I inferred, but I'm not too sure.
I don't know if they even know what that is. I don't know. They're Sasquatch.
So you think it's okay?
I don't know. They're Sasquatch.
Dogs do it.
Who am I to say about a different
Sasquatch are
species?
gods.
That's their
That's their business.
Yeah, that's their business, not
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Do we want to do lightning round? Quick ratings.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
5.
4.5.
4.5.
5.
Good movie
Boom.
all around.
Fantastic.
We all like it.
Challengers, let us know down below what you thought of it.
Yeah.
What was your reaction, and what films it made you think of? But yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.